But for the women, there's 2 bathrooms inside. You can go in there, and for the kids too. And we have 2 kids here today, which is great. I think we need to involve more kids into what we're doing here and what we're trying to do. I'm going to try to make it quick here because I just want to give a little history on the farm quick, and then during the day we can talk a little bit and probably learn a little bit more. I bought the farm in 1999. I rented it out till 2003, and then I decided the reason I bought it is, I mean, I grew up on a dairy farm just west of the city, and I wanted to own a farm of my own. And I ended up, long story short, I ended up buying this farm here. 2003, I started my habitat project. I had no intentions on going after bobwhite quail. It was called diversity that I wanted on the farm here. So I started my project. Gary Larson, I worked with Gary Larson. I worked then with Valerie Green. Where's Valerie here? Behind the tree here. And these people, no, she deserves that because she got me off to the right track. Do I have a lot of work here to do? I have a ton of work. But the thing is that these expert people here got me going in the right direction. And I see another one here, Johnny, sitting right there. He's going to be a great asset to the farm here with my forest here starting this year. So,
burn, Johnny, burn.
Yeah, Johnny loves to burn, so, and that's good. And so what I did is, I took like my pasture out, the cows came out of the pasture, I started planting shrubs. So far I think I have between 20 and 22,000 shrubs and trees planted here, and they were all by hand, not counting the ones that were put in my living snow fence along the road and my winter field breaks. There's one thing that I do different. I'm going to tell you people now. I learned by my mistakes. Would I do that again? No. The problem I have with my trees and my shrubs along there is I can't burn them without killing them. If I had to do it again, I'd put my thermal cover in the corner of the field and I'd burn the rest. And I think Bruce here from Missouri, he will stress how important burning was. I never knew burning was important. I found out 10 years later it's the best thing that's out there. So there's a lot of things that I would do differently, but I was off to the right track because in 2003, and I can't remember the exact date, I was laying under my corn planter here, and I heard this whistle over here, and I'm going, no, it can't be. Can't be. I walk over there, he quit whistling, I walk away, start whistling. Of course, I knew what a bobwhite quail sounded like. In 2006, my brother and I were working back on the fence line there. I don't know what we were doing, but we're walking, and my first covey of quail went into the air. We started our chapter in 2005, and I had done a lot of projects here already, not focusing on quail, but all of a sudden this thing started happening. The quail started showing up, and that's kind of the story. Is my farm perfect? Absolutely not. I need to do, there's so much work. If you have a piece of property, let me tell you, you just have to continue to pick it, work an area, and go from there. There's areas on my farm that's probably too thick for quail, just for the little bumblebees in the spring to go through, but you know, that's areas that I'll work on. All my tree lines, if you notice the tree line coming up the driveway, they're all down. I planted shrubs all the way along to my tree line. If you look down that out by the main road and down there, I dropped all my trees, and back here you'll see where I did a lot of edge feathering, instant habitat. And the thing about here is that, don't kid yourself, I can walk out there and there's every species of non-game species that's out there nesting. It's great, but I can't burn it. So, food plots, I'll show you what I've done this year. It really stunk, but I think some of them come through just because of the flood, and then we had this drought now for a month, so it's really good. Is there anything else? Oh, the flowering. I know some of you expected to come up and just see it just burst out at you. Well, we're about 2 weeks behind. You can see on there on this wall here what it looked like last year in July 24th or whatever it was. it's coming, but then that happens all throughout the year from spring to fall, spring to fall. Let's see, anything else? Any questions? Otherwise, we're going to move right into the next
You never
speaker.
transplanted the quail here? They were just here?
They just showed up. And, there's another story about another year or two later. I was fall turkey hunting, and I was waiting for my Tom to come by, and I do have to tell this story. Dan, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm sitting back here, and I hear this, in fact, it's right here. How about turning it on? I heard this. And I'm like, what? You know, and so it was just at sunset. I think it was October, like 24th or whatever, 20th. And I get up and I look, and here there's a whole covey of quail scurrying. We'll show one of the favorite areas that they like to hang out at. And that's where it was. And well, then, of course, and I'm all fired up about quail now. So that's how it kind of thinks. And what's really bizarre here is that people say, can you go out and you see a quail or hear a quail? A lot of my birds on the property here, and I'll say that for pheasants, they all move in here because I have so much good quality habitat to hold them over the winter. In the spring, and I'm saying for pheasants, and they move off, and they'll move across the valley, and I'll hear them, and then in the fall they kind of come back. And I really believe, and maybe Bruce or maybe Thurman, I believe these quail, they go further than we think they do. I mean, just to find that perfect habitat to raise their brood, because as you know, they need certain types of habitat. So, anything else? Otherwise, we're going to move right in. Thurman here, Thurman Tucker, he's our state coordinator. He was awarded at the National Pheasant Quail Classic the Volunteer of the Year award for the country. He got the award this year. Some of us know him, few of us might not, but he's done so much work down in this part of the area. I'm going to just roll right into you, Thurman, and you can go with it.
Okay. Well, I want to thank again you guys for coming out, and I want to encourage everyone to sign in up there. Somebody's going to win a free steak dinner at Good Times. Now, if you're from wherever, let's say Islanda, Minnesota, or California, it doesn't matter. We'll send that check to the restaurant you pick out. So somebody's going to win a good steak dinner for two. So make sure you get your name and all the information on some cards up there. You see a little bucket up there and all. Of course, sign in for the door prizes also. But anyway, make sure you sign in before you leave, because somebody's going to win that nice steak dinner at your restaurant for choice, or either at Good Times, which is in Caledonia. I like to say I thank Paul and people like him. There are quite a few landowners like Paul who are really energetic about building habitat for wildlife. Paul is one. We got Art here, Art somewhere. Anyway, Art is really into it. Back in the back there. There are landowners who really like habitat and they like wildlife, so to speak. I'm a hunter. Paul's a hunter. Most of us probably are hunters. But it's more than hunting. And what we're focusing in regarding our chapter down in Southeast, building the habitat is the key thing. We're really, really strongly focused on habitat building. That's the reason we have Bruce here today. Tyler is going to give us some information. We have a prairie expert here too, letting us know what to do regarding prairie planting and all. Paul again has done an outstanding job here. But we just have to continue to fine-tune, manage the land, not just for bobwhite, but a lot of other grassland birds and also pollinators. But Paul, myself, and other guys like Art back there, we just love wildlife. And what we want to do today is basically identify some good habitat for bobwhite. We want to take Bruce's advice. Well, this is what I would do. And I'm encouraging Bruce to be very objective. Let us know what you think, because we can take from here and take it back to various farms, so to speak, and these guys can use these practices here. I want to mention here a little structure over here. This is a pallet design here that I got from down in Missouri on one of the quail field days here about three years ago. What this is designed to do, Missouri stresses edge feathering. All edge feathering it is along the edges of forest and all. You're going to cut the trees down and let them lay. Quail love that, also pheasants, cardinals, a lot of other species like that kind of habitat. But what we found during the winter time, if those trees are just laying down with 6, 7, 10 inches of snow on the ground, it really just takes out all the cover. So predators can easily see quail. This design, what we want to use here is we want to get the pallet structured and then get the brush, this sort of brush in there where the birds can feel access inside, they can get out of the way of predators and all. In addition to this design, we want to have a feeder or two around that. We don't have the feeder here. I do have plans in there as far as if you want to build feeders. And Paul, we're going to show you Paul what he's done. But we need to have some kind of fencing around the feeders where the deer really don't just get in and, eat them all the time. But anyway, this is the design here. We're going to be pushing, just give you an idea of putting a brush on it, letting the birds get underneath their cover. My experience again, wintertime with all the snow, it's just too deep for just pure edge feathers. Missouri, further south, yeah, it would work. But we got to look at Minnesota, what we got to do here now. So we tweak it a little bit. We got to change it a bit and all. Talking to Bruce yesterday, Bruce, Missouri expert on quail, and I asked him, I said, well, okay, if you can give people, let's say, 3 pointers on what they should do to increase their quail habitat. He said, first of all, I would burn. Second thing I would burn. Third thing I'd burn. I get the message. He's into burning stuff, And I think Ballard and some other people there too. And Paul, of course, he's been through it. But this year has been so different regarding all the rain we had here a couple of months ago. Now it's dry. But it just has not been a good year. But the objective is to burn. And then on top of that, Bruce was saying his best time, and he would encourage people to burn during the fall because that's going to bring in more forbs. And we know forbs really work. That's your wildflowers. They really work for quail because it's going to bring in more insects. A lot of us, I think, we're more into spring burning. But they're basically, you can burn any time. But down in Missouri and all, they don't get the snow we get here. So they burn fall and winter. Now, the best burning, when I've talked to some of the quail guys, they like to burn during the summertime, this time of year, which is hard to believe, but they said this is really a great time to burn. In addition to that, now, Bruce has his wife here, and both of them are burning. So you're looking at the burning teams, both of them right there. I think she uses a drip torch, and he has a blow type of deal to control the flames and all. So both of them work together towards burning. But I hope you'll get some good ideas what to take back to your land, what you can do to help bobwhite quail. And in a sense, that's about all I have because I'd like to hear more from Bruce and Valerie, somebody from Prairie, Andy over there. Yep. I'd like to hear from these guys here, but our objective is really to get more bobwhite quail. I think we're on the road. It's just a matter now of time where we got to see the birds hopefully improve. Anyway, again, guys, thanks a lot for coming. Appreciate you coming around.
I'm next, Paul.
Next, Andy from Prairie Moon Nursery. Actually, last weekend we were over there at Prairie Moon and they had their tour, and it was a great tour, and we learned a lot. And I know there was a few people here that was there last weekend. So with that, Andy, have at it.
Okay. All right. Thanks for listening to me here. I'm Andy from Prairie Moon Nursery. We are a native plant and seed company promoting prairie and other native habitat restoration, providing the plant materials and the seeds for those projects. So naturally, there's a good match with quail habitat provision, any kind of wildlife promotion. There's a lot of advantages to managing the prairie. But I guess what I kind of wanted to talk generally about diversity and then kind of bring it back to managing grassland. Diversity is important at all different scales of the global ecosystem. So I'm going to start kind of abstract and just work down to the point here with quail. You've got a diversity of life on Earth due to diverse conditions, growth. You've got different climates in different places. If we had one climate across the whole globe, we would have one type of vegetation. Down to the regional level, we're really fortunate here in the driftless area because of this topography. Topographic diversity allows for more vegetation and animal diversity. You've got a different environment on the north face, on the south face. So diversity of topography is, allowing for forests where it's more moist and it's protected on the north face. You've got prairies more prevalent, especially in the past, on the south and west facing slopes. And then it just works on every single scale of ecology. Get down to the one farm here. We've got patches that are rows of shrubs. We've got areas that are more open field. We've got forested areas. Different vegetation cover types are going to promote obviously diverse plants within those different areas, as well as the wildlife. So I want to promote an approach to whether you're managing for quail or wildlife in general, sort of looking at it through the lens of diversity and realizing how important that is. And one reason why that comes to mind is because I've talked to a lot of people on the phone. They want to have some kind of planting for wildlife. They want to know what's the best seed, the best orb to put in their grass, or what is the best grass. There's, on our inventory, we've got over 600 species of native plants that were, all over. We didn't have, one patch of this grass with, one forb in there, one wildflower species, or this bird, quail were right there, and then the other animals were in that patch. We've got, historically, all these animals coexisting, and they're coexisting in very, very diverse environments. So, if you're considering managing some grassland for bobwhite quail, consider that you could have multiple benefits, and that the quail might not be, so concerned whether you have a particular species of plant in there, a particular wildflower. Not saying that there aren't particular forbs, which are the wildflowers, if you don't know that term, that quail might prefer. But I imagine that quail are gonna, like most animals, they're gonna survive in habitats that have just a whole bunch of plants involved. So we're going to do a grass planting. You might have a recipe with 3 grasses and 2 species of wildflower that someone recommends, and they might be very good. I would encourage you to look at diversifying that. If you start with a recommended recipe and you want to do some kind of planting, you're not going to hurt anything by throwing some more native plants in there. You might have other benefits from diversifying your planting, such as insect diversity and insect production. I read that quail, especially the young ones, eat a lot of insects. It's an important part of their diet. Diverse prairies are going to produce more types of insects, more types of food, and more abundant food than a simple prairie. You've got just warm season grasses, for example. You're not going to have nearly as much insect diversity and abundance as if you were to plant. You could have 30 to 100 species of plants in your mix. You could have 10 grasses, 50 species of wildflower in there. I would imagine with such a planting you would have more success with bringing wildlife to your farm. And also you're going to have more stability. That's another thing you get out of diversity. A very simple planting with fewer species is going to be more prone to boom and bust cycles. So one year you're going to have a lot of insects feeding on this dominant grass, and they're producing lots of, they're fattening the quail pretty well that year. Next year maybe those populations crash because something else came in to feed on them. If you've got 50 species of wildflowers in there, each species could potentially be harboring 7 unique insects that are specific to that plant. And so you've got one population that doesn't do as well this year. You still got all sorts of other bugs for them. And the same goes for the plants themselves. I don't know a lot about the quail diet, but I imagine they eat a little bit of plant material too, whether it's greens in the spring or seeds. I would just assume from what I know about ecology that your quail are going to do all right in a diverse planting in that way. So that's about all I wanted to share. Does anybody have any questions about prairies or what I'm talking about?
There's a lot of talk about burning. How does burning affect insect populations and diversity? I mean, is there a time of year where it's better to burn because you're less likely to hurt insect populations? Where do they go if you burn your whole farm, theoretically? What have you done to your insect population?
There's a lot of debate, so I wouldn't say I have the answer on that. But I think it's generally understood that you are going to be better off if you alter your burning. You do one patch this year, the next patch that year. You go in like a cycle. So at least a 3-year cycle, for a given 60-acre property that you want to burn, burn 20 acres, next year burn 20 acres. And in addition to that, when you're burning, there's different approaches to burning. A lot of people feel more satisfied if they get every last piece of ground, fully torched. I would encourage you to go out and actually look to miss areas on purpose. So, I don't know who has experience burning here, but if you get into burning prairie, you'll find some areas aren't burning as well. You'll go back and hit it with the torch a little bit more and try to get it going. Leave them alone. Those are going to be refugia for insects. You're going to have things surviving in those patches, and that's kind of the way it worked historically. Historically, records show that people didn't burn like you tend to do now, where you got to do it real thorough. They left it pretty patchy. Also, go ahead.
Andy, you mentioned when I was talking to you about one of the plants that quail like down in Missouri are lespedeza. Mm-hmm. It's a legume. And I'm wondering, you said this is a plant we can grow here in Minnesota. And maybe you can give us a little bit of insight on really lespedeza as far as that taking hold as a sandy soil type planting. More of a clay. What kind of, is it any type of, the average farm here in Houston County, can they kind of get lespedeza going on their property?
Oh yeah, yeah. You can, on a mesic prairie or a prairie that's not dry, not wet, in the middle, typical on a ridgetop like this, that's perfect habitat for lespedeza. So that's lespedeza is also called prairie bush clover, or bush clover. There's different kinds. Legume family of the peas and the beans, high protein. A lot of those kind of plants are targeted for wildlife, and that's one of them. There's also, you mentioned partridge pea earlier. That's another legume plant, and there's many other legumes that are suitable for providing food. I was going to say also about burning and diversity. Talking about the timing and the different ideas about when to burn. I encourage people to burn at different times, different years, if feasible. You'll promote different forms of life by burning fall versus spring, as we talked about. So if we're burning at different times of year each year, we're not. I mean, if you burn the same time every year in the site, you're going to sort of select over time for particular plants that love it when you burn that time of year, and you're getting rid of those things that are most susceptible that time of year. So if you vary your burning a little bit, which is not always feasible for everybody, but it's a good thing if you can. And if you're not concerned about thorough, just totally torching everything completely, you might be more comfortable burning in the summer. A lot of people say, oh, you can't burn in the summer. I mean, have you tried? It doesn't burn. Well, fine if you don't have that burn, so I think it's not a bad idea. Anything else?
Well, I mean, I can't imagine burning. What's going to burn now? Everything's green.
Well, it depends on the site. I have seen sites burn, and in the summer,
Couldn't you
you're probably going to be limited to drier things where you don't have as much green, and that's not a
cut it and drop it to the ground, let it sit out there in the hot sun for a week to dry it up, and then burn it?
I don't know if that'll work. I could imagine it laying down too much
Yeah.
and just sort of matting and staying moist. But maybe you could get something burned like that. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
All right.
Andy's going to be around. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I didn't bring any catalogs, but if anybody's interested in the native plants that we offer in the seed, there's a list you can put your name on. We'll send a catalog, and the list is in the garage.
Very
Thanks, Andy.
beautiful catalog they have, too. I mean, there's pictures of every wildflower you can just about...
Also a great website. I've learned a lot from their website. Very educational, helpful, lots of great pictures.
He talked about diversity. I put in the farm here, I have about 60 to 70 different species of forbs, wildflowers, and then I don't know how many different grasses I have in there, but that's what I had in here. And they are expensive, don't get me wrong, they were, and like you said, you can add them later, you can do some cross seeding and things like that. One thing I failed to mention, there's a red-headed woodpecker that's hanging around here, and if you just saw Brent last winter, it's Marty Stolfer all over again, trying to get photographs of this red-headed woodpecker. I think he saw an ivory-billed woodpecker, he was after it. But he'll be flying around here, so some of us that everyone knows, I think their population's down about 80% right now on those red-heads, and it's going not in a good direction. So there is some here, and I do have some good cavities for them in the woods there, so I'm sure that's why they're hanging around. Question?
Well, before we go on too much longer, I keep looking over there at that pallet thing with those branches on it. I probably should have asked somebody out, Thurman, the question, but what happens after a couple of weeks when all the leaves have melted, or not melted, but,
Oh, you mean
wilted?
come up there? What, that was just kind of for show today. You would probably put a little bit heavier cover over there, large, thicker branches on there, and you're exactly right, that would happen. But I would build up the brush a little bit more around it. That's what I would do. And thicker branches and stuff. I just went out and cut some softwoods just for show today. Thanks. Yes?
Is there a reason for that pallet at the bottom, or is that just a mixture?
Actually, there is a reason for it. Those birds can go underneath there. And so if a predator, aerial predator, or a fox or whatever comes, they can sneak through that and go all around the other side. So you want it off the ground, or you want a bottom pallet on that.
Okay.
So actually, Thurman's been talking about this for quite some time, and I offered to have him bring it up here, and actually, I kind of like it. But one thing you should keep in mind, if you are going to do it and you want it to last, see if you can get some hardwood pallets, because they will last a lot longer than softwoods. So.
Let me mention also on that, should have mentioned, when you do this, put this design out there, you want to make sure you cut the grass or mow it or whatever, and then spray it. What you want the pallets to be on just as bare dirt as much as possible. And even that, over a period of time, the grasses and the weeds will come up. So spot spraying, and you want to keep it pretty much semi-open as much as you can. If you don't, then it get all clogged in, and it's really not good for quail. In wintertime, yes, you want it kind of thick, more than it is right now. But again, if you're not managing well, it can kind of overtake the pallets, and birds just won't use it as much. I like to think of this as back old-fashioned time when they were shocking corn, and you had this type of deal, and quail would use those shocks quite a bit, and this is semi-shocking in a sense here, but mainly with brush. But the purpose of it is where they can go in there, and like Paul said, you can go in there and they're out of the way of predators more so than just an open area.
You don't have to put something at either end.
I don't think so. You can secure them as best you can, because I think they got to hang in there. They kind of anchor together, wedge together. And I think the brush is pretty much kind of secured even more. We have not done a lot of extensive work with these and all, but I just know that our edge feathering up here in Minnesota just doesn't work as well as in Missouri. We want to be able to have the birds where they can go in there, they can enter these covered areas and be out of the way of predators. But the predators can't go in, and that's what the big thing we want to have for these pellets and all. But again, keeping the brush down, and I might mention too, sometimes even the edge feathering, it doesn't hurt to go around this and spot spraying. I know people look at chemicals, but spot spraying really helps quail because they can get too thick. Quail like stuff pretty much semi-open as much as possible. Winter time is a different thing. They want to be able to have that covered. But anyway, just
one other thing I want to mention, Berman, we talked about this last night. You have 3 pallets there. You could make a whole line 20, 30 feet long of these. It'd be even better yet because then those birds can get through there. This here is just kind of we're showing you what it is, but if you can line all these up and you can get pallets, I mean, they're cheap, free, and just line them up from here down past that white pine, and it's even better yet. Those birds got to get away from those predators. One thing, and I've always said this about pheasants and everything else, if you don't get them through the winter, you're not going to have birds in the spring here. They need that thermal cover, and they need to get away from the predators. So, just a little bit mentioned about predators. They asked if I do any predator control here. I didn't really start till about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. Over a year, a little over a year, I caught over 100 coon on the farm here. 100, over 100, plus possum and skunk and coyote and fox. That wasn't included in that, but I went out this morning and I went and cut a few flowers off and that, and I'm not saying that predator control is the big deal, but it's part of the picture. Okay. I don't know, for some reason I got a lot of rabbits. I mean, I practically ran over 3-4 of them just picking those wildflowers today, and deer and everything else. But if you keep them in control, I think it means a lot. But first, number one key is habitat, though. You got to be able to get around because they all go together. Anyway, we're right on time, and the next speaker is Valerie. She came here. I can't remember the exact year, if it was in '99 or 2000, whatever. But she has been a great asset to me, and her knowledge about the forest down here and how I need to manage it. Trust me, I still have some buckthorn, I still have some honeysuckle, I still have these things that I need to stay after. But just with her being here, giving me advice, and I am in a forest stewardship plan with Johnny here has renewed. I've been in it 10 years. I renewed it this year, and you just need to stay after those invasives. I mean, it's an ongoing project all day long, but I'm telling you, you take care of them and your natives will be back, and a lot of things will flourish here. So, Valerie, you're on.
Okay. I think it was '99 when I came here because I think you had just bought the place, and I remember walking over there, the woods had been pastured, and it was absolute bare dirt. There were some nice trees, but if we'd had a bad rain, the hillside would have slid off. Paul's done amazing things here, just amazing. After lunch, I'll do a woodland ID walk for anybody that wants to do it. We can go back out to the ridge and actually go on a woody trail. I'm going to echo what Andy said about diversity. You want diversity over your farm and your neighbor's farm and the neighborhood and the state, but also you want to deal with natives. And we have a lot of invasive plants around here. Some of them were brought in on purpose with good intentions by agencies like mine. Now we're seeing that some of those things that were brought in 30, 40 years ago are becoming real problems. In the woods, they outdo the native plants. I've worked with a number of you here, and that's probably what I've worked with most of you on, is at least doing that as well as managing the trees that you already have. So I had some handouts in the building on invasives. I don't have everything that we have out here that's a problem. And we have some that are on the horizon. Burning bush, like see in the yard.
Bad.
It is, but people didn't know that, and it's a popular ornamental. Well, the seeds don't stay. Same with, buckthorn was brought as an ornamental shrub. Multiflora rose was brought over as living fence. Honeysuckle was planted for wildlife, the exotic honeysuckle bushes. So one thing I stress with people is, before you start planting a whole lot of stuff, you want to make sure you're not going to cause yourself and your neighbors and everybody a problem later. Also, people usually call the office, I want oak on my property. I think it was Andy that mentioned there's a real difference between your south and west slopes and your north and east slopes. So there's a big case for diversity and for burning right there. Your woods on your north and east slopes do not burn very often or very well. The south and west slopes where the oaks tend to do better are actually pretty good burners. And not necessarily at just the time of the year that we normally think of burning. They will burn much, much later in the spring than some of the more open stuff. Big fan of burning. Burn a lot of state property and a lot of private lands too. We have some people with some real burn experience here today. Johnny McHale and Keith Duran have done a ton of burning. So feel free to talk to those guys about burning too. I will say you need a permit from the DNR. So anyway, I'm going to be around all day, and after lunch, take a walk out in the woods for anybody that wants to, and we can just do some woody plant ID out there too. It's the same thing with your grassland. You want health of the habitat to provide for all the animals, not just one specific one. But if you keep it healthy and manage the habitat, those things will come. So I'll do my walking tour this afternoon.
Okay. Thanks, Valerie. We just one thing, Valerie. I have a ridge that runs out the back of the property, which is really kind of fun. You really probably want to go with Val on that, and that's later. I think we'll do that after lunch. Is that what you want to do, Val? I think so. Question.
Is it true that if you're burning 1 acre or less, that your local fire wardens can issue you a permit for that? But if you're going to do more than an acre, then you have to go through the DNR office and get a bigger permit. Right?
That is true. Your local fire warden, which you are one, I think, and also the $5 permit that you can get online that's good for a year. Those are for brush piles and acreages less than an acre. Because a lot of people have a little strip between the road and their driveway that they want to do. Those aren't really burns that you're worried about. But if you're going to be burning prairie and stuff like Paul is, anything that's bigger than that, you do need a permit from the DNR forestry for that.
Is there any other questions? If not, do we want to take a little break for maybe and then come back, and then we'll hear our main speaker here, our big-time speaker, Bruce? Do you want to do that? I think some of us need to use the restroom. So let's give it, my trail's probably down about 70%, only because I found out what was traveling on them was predator. And so I cut those off. So you used to be able to walk all the way around the farm here, and now you can't. So we have now limited trails, which is fine, but I think I saved some birds that way. So one other thing that that maybe Bruce can explain this better than I did. I wanted to get a cubby call, kind of a numbers, how many birds are sticking around in the fall. They give that fall cubby call, That's what this thing does. And what this thing does is these people, I think, elsewhere that release birds, that whether it be on game farms, it calls them back to a pen, and they respond to it. They come back, they get them back in the pen, and they release them again for dog training. Well, I'm going to use this here in the fall. I'm going to put this out in 2 different areas. I'm going to see how many birds actually come back to that and go there in the morning and the afternoon, because I think the birds here are kind of scattered out. I'm going to see how this works. So it's kind of a new deal, and your website master here, he's the one who got me hooked on this caller here. We'll see how it works this fall.
Question, how many quail do you think you have out here?
You know,
a lot, or?
no. 3 years ago, when we had those 2 hard winters, was that 3 years ago or 3 or 4 years ago? That was tough. It was tough. I was just telling Bruce here last fall, our friends, well, they're cooking or whatever they're doing. We were out here grilling one night, and this is what happens on the farm. I see my birds and hear my birds unexpectedly all the time. If I want to go out and find one, I don't find one. Dan. Last fall we were grilling here, and I was messing with this caller. I was just telling Bruce this story. Just messing with it, and, we were sitting there getting the grill ready to go, and I walked back outside, and I saw Luann's mouth drop wide open, and the other one looked wide open. And over in this corner here, that brush pile used to be heaped up last year. Heaped up because I trimmed some of these trees here. Here that doggone quail was over there, and I fired this thing up, and it was crazy. Went over there, we tried to find the quail, we couldn't find it, walk away with it. I don't know, but they don't stick around to get shot or to get... Dan, it's hard to say. I mean, like I said, the birds kind of scatter, and I don't know. I did try to, I got to tell you this, though, I did try to have some, I did buy a few quail to put in a pen for everyone to see here. A possum came in and got me. And anyway, that's the end of the story.
Oh, you want to mention regarding the...
Oh, yeah. 3 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago. Right below Hopple Hill here, as anyone knows where that's at, there was, like Carla from the Nature Center saw 2 quail there.
Yeah.
2 weeks
About
ago?
2 weeks ago,
About 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But also, right over the hill.
But also your renter, she saw a little bruise coming right by the
side
of the
yeah.
house. That was about 3
That was a couple years ago.
Yeah.
There was a brood that came through the yard. So Dan, you don't have quail too very far from here. They're there. It's just a matter of getting your habitat in order, What's really nice, and I'm going to tell you, I used to rent out the farm. Now I don't rent it out, and I can do what I want on it. I mean, that's the bottom line. If I want to go out and, kill or just run the disc through something, I'm going to do it. I mean, that's the way it is. And one thing I want to mention, now this is crazy, and I'm a farm boy, and I grew up on a farm, and we cultivated cornfields. We don't anymore because we spray everything. And this is me, but we're killing all these insects. I mean, I got honeybees over there, and luckily they probably stay within the farm just because they don't have to go elsewhere. But the thing is there was an area back there I was going to put in a food plot. I took the disc through it last June or July. It grew up in wagweed and thurman sod, ragweed and pigweed and foxtail. There were more non-game species in there, and pheasants and quail, and I didn't actually see the quail there, but it's amazing how these birds love wheat seeds. And I'm just telling you, ragweed is a huge thing.
Attracts a lot of insects too.
It's just unbelievable. Ragweed. Some of us that got allergies think that, but I don't know. I'm sure Bruce can. Ragweed is huge. So with that, Bruce is on board. He took time, him and his wife, to come up here from Missouri to come to our events here, and I really appreciate it, Bruce, because he's the guy. He's the expert here. I'm not, and trust me, we can learn a lot from him. So you're on, Bruce.
I think expert kind of elevates me to a point maybe I don't belong. Our quail expert in Missouri is Bill White. He's a wildlife biologist with Missouri Department of Conservation. Bill taught me a come hither call, and it's for quail, and it's to attract them. And it's not uncommon for Dan and I to be out in the field, especially this time of year, if the hens are nesting or with the brood, and males are out calling and they're still trying to attract some attention. You can use this come hither call, and we can actually get our males to fly right to us, which is great fun.
No kidding.
I had 2 of the males. I was walking the other morning, and I had quail on each male calling on each side of me, and I called, and they were both now in competition with each other, and they flew right at me. So I was using that call just a minute ago. If anybody heard me whistling, I guess Jan, I don't know where you were, but I was back here, and we heard a quail answer. I'm sure it was a quail. I'm gonna try it again. This come hither call is, and by the way, I can't talk without. And you'll think I might be doing the gnat thing, but I can't talk unless I'm waving my arm. But the come hither call is this. But I swore a minute ago we were doing that. And Jan came to me. She said, "You hear that, Quail?" I think you have them. Paul's right about the mowing. We have a 5K trail mower on our farm. The mowing does a couple things. It encourages some of your sods, your undesirable vegetation, but it also provides pathway for predators. So we still have those mowed paths, but I don't like them, and we try to minimize the use of them, but it's true it does that. Quail at the bottom of the food chain, everything eats quail. Life of a quail is less than a year. Mortality rate of a quail is 108% a year. Reproductive rate of a quail is over 300% a year in good habitat. I think the thing I want to talk about though is quail is an indicator species. If you have quail, it's an indication that you have good early succession habitat. And here's what gets to the point where I explain what early succession habitat is. And this is where I get to the arm waving thing. Imagine over here you have bare ground. You have just dirt. And you can leave it alone. Didn't do anything with it. The first thing that's going to grow there are annual weeds. The next thing you're going to see grow there are perennials, grasses. Next thing you're going to see grow there are buckbrush and some woody shrubs, vines. And the next thing is going to grow there is those first trees in a woodlot structure, and then eventually old-growth forest. So you start over here at bare ground, and that plant succession moves from bare ground to annuals to perennials to shrubs up to woodlots and old-growth forest. If Paul would take any portion of ground that he has, quarantine it off, and do absolutely nothing to it, it would eventually turn into old-growth forest. Woody vegetation is the dominant plant species. Everything will turn into woody vegetation if you did nothing at all. What we try to do on our farm is disrupt that vegetative cycle, that progression, so that we move the vegetation as close to this bare ground end of the vegetative cycle as we possibly can. Do that with a disturbance. The disturbance that we use is fire. Now, you can use some disking, and you can use some spraying, and you can use all kinds of other mechanical methods for moving this plant continuum from bare ground, or from somewhere out here back to bare ground. But I think fire for us is some of the best. You're nodding your head, so I guess we're pretty close to being right on with that.
In my mind, yeah.
The times of year that you burn will have an influence on the vegetative response that you get the next year. If you burn in the fall or burn in the winter, you can expect to see a good floral bloom the next spring. If you burn in the spring, what you're likely to do is set back your wildflowers in favor of the grasses. So the time of year that you burn will have a great influence. I just got one of that.
Good protein.
Let me tell you about our farm. Our farm's a little 120 acres in the Missouri foothills of the Ozarks. Humps and bumps, and it's a 50% mixture of woodlot and pasture. A nice mosaic. I have a creek through it. I have a couple fishless ponds. I have one 5-acre, we call the lake, I don't know, it's different. It's an impoundment. And we started back in 2007 thinking that it's just a recreational farm. If it's going to be recreational, let's make it the best it can possibly be. So with that in mind, and the truth is, for a recreational farm, all we thought about was we just want to have a place to deer hunt and a place to hang the deer when we're done, right? Well, we have, in Missouri Department of Conservation, we have a division called Private Lands. They sent out a private land conservationist. This fellow's name was Kyle Larimore, which probably means nothing, but Kyle did some hand holding for us, as I guess Paul had some hand holding you were getting started, and they suggested that we spray our fescue pastures. The farm was a cow-calf operation, and cows and calves went everywhere. So we sprayed our pastures, killed the fescue in the fall of '07. I burned everything off, worried that I was going to have horrible erosion problems because now we have no vegetation. We kill all the fescue and we burn things slick, and it's just a blackened ground. But through the winter we had no erosion. Things started to green up in the spring, and we sprayed again. We sprayed with Roundup, the glyphosate, and killed all of the residual fescue that popped up again. And then we did a no-till drill of a couple grasses and 10 wildflowers. To speed the story up, the next year we went back and did some broadcast dormant seeding of 25 mixture of wildflowers, and then Jan started a specimen garden which has over 120 species of native Missouri grasses and wildflowers, and she started distributing those seeds out to our pastures as well. While we did our pasture restoration, we decided we'd do a woodlot restoration as well. So we went into our woodlots and we did some thinning of some of our undesirable tree species. We opened up that canopy, so we had now some filtered sunlight down to the forest floor. We didn't have that bare ground in our forest. We had 50 years accumulation of leaf litter, so we went in and we burned through our forest floor, get rid of that leaf litter, expose that bare mineral soil now to some filtered sunlight, have great vegetative growth in our woodlots now. We had in the old farm that we purchased, it had I think 11 buildings total. The newest was a 1926 barn, and that's the only one we saved. We restored an old barn and turned it into an event center. And then the lake, which was built like most impoundments, where they just scour out a basin, dam it up, fill out a fill of water, and then hope for the best, and by luck or by chance you got a good pond or a bad pond. That's the way ours was. Turned out to be a bad pond. I mean, it just never was good for fishing, so we decided we've done a pasture restoration, we've done a woodlot restoration, we were doing the barn restoration, let's do the lake restoration as well. We drained the lake. We didn't breach the dam, but we siphoned and pumped off all the water in the lake. And we got lucky that it stayed dry that summer, dry enough that we could get the dozers into the bottom of the lake, and we landscaped the bottom of the lake. We put humps and bumps and jumps and terraces and peninsulas and islands and as much contour. But the come hither call is this. For the last couple of years, 3,000 people a year will come through the gates of the farm to see what we're doing. Now, we get them there for lots of different reasons. This year, I think we'll have as many as 5,000 people who come through the gates of the farm. We'll take them out. And who was it talking about the Garden of Eden kind of thing, and people wanting to get back to that? And people come out there and they get their feet on the ground, and the first thing that happens to them, they take off walking through some of our paths and through some of the wildflowers and down across the dam, and they just seem to have fallen in love with the landscape. And it's great getting people out there. Not everybody digs it, and what was it, Aldo Leopold said, some people, how did he say that? Some people want to be close to the wild things, and some people don't, and we're just trying to attract the people who are close to the wild things. Free donuts! Free donuts!
Or their GPS broke or something. I'm not sure what happened.
You don't think they can smell the donuts?
Yeah, that's probably it.
No, they heard your come hither call.
There we go.
So maybe we'll get back to this continuum. So now we have this continuum, and we have from bare ground to old growth forest. As you move along this plant progression, plant communities and organisms begin to specialize. You get to the old growth forest, you really have the fewest diversity, the least diversity, the fewest number of organisms that have specialized in this particular ecosystem. If you want the greatest diversity of flora and fauna, the greatest diversity of wildlife on your farm, you get back here to this
in closest to bare ground, and that's where you have this battle for life that goes on, where all of these organisms are competing for space, competing for light, and competing for the energy that's available to them and trying to get their start. Again, the tool that we use to move our vegetative continuum back toward the bare ground is fire. Knowing that we're going to get a different vegetative response depending on the time of year that we burn, we have to go back and burn and do a summer burn. And somebody asked about whether or not you can do summer burns or not. The trick is to watch the relative humidity, and we depend upon the computer and the weather.com, and we'll go to the hourly forecast and watch that hourly forecast and the relative humidity and the wind speed. And I really believe if you get relative humidity down low enough, you could burn the Walmart parking lot. So, am I getting close?
You are exactly right. And you get a low enough RH and you can burn anything. It doesn't matter if it's June.
Yeah.
You know, you get something down there around 15%, and he's right, the parking lot of those.
You could burn the parking lot of Walmart.
The wetlands burn.
Oh, yeah, it was so cool because we had to join some friends to burn a wetland, and we just burned right over the top of the water. And you just would not expect that, but we didn't burn underwater, but over the top of the water, it just burned it off slick, which is pretty thing. But relative humidity, you watch that. Jan and I have found that the best time for us to burn is when the state posts these burn bans, because we know that if they say, you know, please don't burn, we think, gosh, this must be right. We don't have to look at the weather, right? Burning is relatively easy. Jan and I are the burn team. The work is in the preparation, though. The work is preparing your burn lines, and that's really when you have to get the tractor to brush hog out, and you have to knock down that vegetation. Typically, your burn line should be, correct me here, but the width has to be 3 times the height of your closest vegetation. So,
yeah, exactly. Of your expected flame length, which may be even bigger. But yeah, he's right. It sounds like a lot, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, so if you have 3 or 4 foot vegetation, I guess this would be 6 foot, wouldn't it? So if you have 4 foot vegetation, you have to have a 12-foot burn line. But you get out and you get your brush hog and you mow it down close, and you get your disc out or your rototiller, you do something, and you can create that burn line, and then after that it's relatively easy. Jan uses a drip torch. By the way, she may be the only person that was happy to get a flapper for a Christmas present. That knows what a flapper is, just to put out the fire. She's easy to please.
The person who holds the drip torch is the fire boss. Yep. So I am the fire boss. I do not put down any fire that I don't think he can manage behind me. Now, Bruce, if you let him be the fire boss, he drops it to the ground, turns his back, and never looks back at you.
Never look back. Never look back. Now, the tool that I use is a backpack blower, and I use the biggest steel backpack blower that I can. And burning through the woods, by the way, is absolutely the easiest preparation that you can do. You can take that backpack blower and you can blow the leaves out of the way and expose this bare mineral soil. You start your fire against the wind, and your fire line just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's just so easy. I always try to burn downhill to get started rather than uphill. One of my first woods burn, I don't do all that, but burns are easy. Just the two of us. We do learn a lot, and we burn in small parcels. Our largest field that I mentioned is 23 acres. We have that 23 acres divided into 9 paddocks, 9 units. And at one time we were maintaining our fire lines between each of those. Nowadays I won't maintain them until it's just time to burn, and then I'll create those burn lines. But then we can just burn 2-acre paddocks or 2.5-acre paddocks, and it's small, it's easy. And in that 23-acre field, I can burn one up here and one over here and one down here, and still have other suitable vegetation to hold the insects and the wildlife, so I don't have to worry about not leaving any cover for the wildlife through the winter. If we were on a 3-year rotation and I had 9 paddocks, I never had to burn any paddocks that were adjacent to each other. We have created covey headquarters at the junction of each of those burn lines. So if a quail is going to use this escape cover that we've built for them, they can use that escape cover, and they are adjacent to vegetation that hasn't been burned for 2 years, vegetation that's 1 year old, and vegetation that's just burned. Which gets us to the vegetative structures that quail need. That early succession vegetation, that is that young, green, succulent vegetation that is favored by insects. I have so many stories, I want to jump around. A fellow in North Missouri, Frank Oberly, has a company called Prairie Seed Company, not to be in competition, Andy, with Prairie Moon, but I know Frank, and Frank told me this story, and I've just thought it was gold. He said the grasses are the structure and the cover, but he said it's the wildflowers that are the dinner plate for wildlife, for 2 reasons. The dinner plate, in that the bloom of wildflowers attracts the insects. The insects provide the protein that baby birds need, not just baby quail, but baby bluebirds and everything else. So everybody has to have that protein diet when they're growing up. And the other thing is the wildflowers provide that seed that's there in the fall of the year and one of the year before it's good. So grasses, we don't have this many gnats down there.
You said you wanted insects. I got the insects.
Well, yeah, I tried to teach these girls how to use those sweet nets. Maybe we could clear the air. So the grasses being structure and cover, the wildflowers being the dinner plate. We try to reduce the amount of grass in our paddocks to really as little as 10 or 20%. We don't like to have that big, thick, rank, dense grass vegetation. Favor the wildflowers. Now, one thing that we have to do when we get back, we have to do a summer burn, and it's because we have one of those paddocks that is so dense and rank with grass that we just don't have a good floral bloom. And so we're going to burn warm season grass during the warm season, and that'll stunt it and set it back in the next year. And the one we did last, the year after the burn, we had a field of nothing but lance-leaf coreopsis. The year that followed the lance-leaf coreopsis was nothing but black-eyed Susan. Beautiful, beautiful fields. I get to rambling like this.
First, could I ask you, while you're thinking here, what about destroying nests when you burn in the summertime? How do you find that?
Can I answer that question?
Sure.
What we're going to burn is not prime habitat for quail. It is hard to walk through for me. They're not
It's too
going
dense and rank in
So we got too much for them to choose from, for them to define what we're going to burn to be appropriate for their nesting.
Yeah.
So I'm not ever too worried in a summer burn that I'm going to take out a quail nest. Now, I'm gonna maybe destroy some other things along the way. Turkey should be up and gone by time.
Yeah.
We're really running late.
You're gonna get
so.
you're gonna get some reptiles. You're gonna get some turtles. You're gonna burn some snakes, and you're gonna burn some of those things that can't escape the fire. That's gonna happen. We will burn late enough in the summer. It'll be. Oh gosh, actually, it'll be late in August by the time we do finally do our burning. By that time, any second nesting attempt should have been over, and we're already by that time in the third nesting attempts for quail. The winter burns for us are ideal because we don't have that winter snow cover all winter that you might have here. And I'm really getting away. Oh, I know that's what I'm going to. Really getting away from those spring burns simply because it doesn't favor the wildflowers. It simply favors the grasses. Now, Paul said he doesn't like to use chemicals, and I'm like Paul. I'm not big on using all the chemicals. However, one of the issues that we had on the farm was to get rid of the exotic vegetation that included fescue. And fescue is a cool season grass. So what we've done for the last couple of years with great success because we still have these residual pockets of fescue that keep creeping back, and bluegrass and so on. After a burn and things are blackened, things start to green up in the spring. The things that green up in the spring, the grasses that green up, are our cool season grasses and our fescues and our bluegrass and so on. And we'll call our co-op out, and we'll have them spray, and we'll use a chemical called Select or Select Plus. And Select targets the grasses, but it doesn't kill the wildflowers. So you can spray, and if you spray early enough in the spring when you have just the cool season grasses and fescues, we can kill those. It doesn't hurt the warm season, they're going to come up just a little bit later, and it doesn't hurt any of the wildflowers. And I just absolutely love the results that we get from that.
Who makes Select?
Gosh, I don't know the manufacturer of Select.
Okay.
Do I know the active? No, I don't. I'm sorry. I don't know the active ingredient. So if you...
That's Paul's meeting.
Yeah, he had something to go to.
Okay. Because we could all leave here and go over there and do some hacking and burning and stuff at his place. I don't do the food plots. I have all the tools to put in food plots. I don't. The benefits of a food plot is really not in the first year's growth, but it's the second year after they lay fallow, and that's when you have your bare ground, and that's when you begin to see the weeds and the food of the gods for quail. Number one food is ragweed, common ragweed, but ragweed will drop its seed before winter, so there has to be something else to carry through. Thurman, some people put in food plots, and I think they have some great benefits. I just don't, and we do fine, I think, without them.
Just to comment, I know I've personally done some feeding. We have quail feeders around, and we have food plots. And our food plots, we just don't seem to get the activity from pheasant, quail, and other birds as much as the feeders. The feeders are up against some real good cover and all, you know. I know it's a little bit more maintenance job, refilling feeders and all, but we get better results with feeders close by cover than we do food plots. I'm assuming, because when you look at, again, this landscape during wintertime, you got 5, 6, 10 inches of snow cover. The birds, I think, are hesitant going out there and feeding. So they hang around the edges, and again, that's where the feeders come in. But I agree with you. I think the biggest advantage for us would be in this part of the country is that, and probably the same thing in Missouri, is that if you're going to leave that food plot and don't do it that year, so to speak, or half of it, so to speak, and let the just dead vegetation hang there, it's going to be good nesting cover for those birds.
What
and that's
comes
where it
up in that fallow field after the food plot is really ideal. Which kind of brings to another point, too. I mentioned we have this 123-acre field divided up into paddocks, and each junction of all of the paddocks, we have these covey headquarters. We went out with a GPS, and we plotted those and put them on a map, and we drew circles on a map to indicate a 50 and 75-foot circle around those food plots. Because in the wintertime, quail rarely venture more than 75 feet from escape cover, which is why I think the weakness we have for most of the farms, we don't have enough escape cover for them. But if they rarely venture out 50 to 75 feet from escape cover in the winter, we have to have our escape cover close together. So I had this big field and all beautiful vegetation, and I think plenty of food out the farm, but it wasn't close enough to all of these covey headquarters. The covey headquarters are too far apart. They're not going to go from one to the other. They're going to stay within that 50 to 75 feet of escape cover in hard winter. Bill White, the fellow I mentioned when I first opened, he did some studies with radio collars. He had a group of quail that he was monitoring, had collars on them. They moved into a brush pile, big snow came, and he thought after a week they died. I mean, they hadn't moved from that brush pile in a week. And so he wanted to go back and retrieve his collars, his radio translators, and opened up the brush pile and the quail all flew. So, surprised at that. And somebody else mentioned about, maybe it was your neighbor, Dave, or Paul. One of the quails that Bill tracked moved 8 miles in one season. And a covey will cover as much as 100 acres in a typical year. So, we have 120 acres and we have 6 coveys. That's 20 or 1 covey per 20 acres. I don't think we could improve the density of quail without doing some of that tall timber, intense feeding year round. I don't think we could do better than that.
Bruce, do you have, and I'm assuming you do, but grouse habitat? I mean, do you have grouse in place?
No, not in our area. We don't. There are grouse just a little farther north of us, but we don't have them, and no pheasants. None of that.
First, when we were down in Missouri last year, I mean, I did not know this. What's the reasoning? I thought you had pheasants down there. We were over at, whose property were we on? Can't think of his name. But anyway, he had
Jeff Durant. Yeah.
And I was surprised not to see pheasants there. Why can't pheasants survive in Missouri? It's crazy, and they live in this tundra up there.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for you there. I don't know.
Is it something in the soil, or
I've heard that said. I've heard said that there's a certain mineral component missing in the soil that they need.
Pheasants can't.
I think it's calcium.
Is it calcium?
That's what I heard.
That was a total surprise to me that there weren't pheasants down where when we did the tour down there.
Yeah. Well, Jeff's place is about, Columbia, Missouri is right in the center pretty much of the state. And Jeff's place where we went last year was probably, maybe from Iowa, maybe 60, 70 miles from Iowa. So he was not far south, and maybe a little further north there might have been pheasants. But yeah, he said there were no pheasants in his place. So might see 1 or 2, but nothing.
Yeah, that was, I did not know that.
Don't have an answer. Anybody else have?
See, one more question over here.
Yeah.
For the sake of the viewers to our website, who may not be familiar with all the practices, would you be so kind as to describe what a covey headquarters is?
Covey headquarters is a escape cover for quail, and there have been some studies done to determine the absolute best size for escape cover. Now, some people reported that they'll use areas as small as a basketball that they can get into to escape predation. But of the studies, 1,500 square feet seem to be the ideal dimension, that 30 by 50 size for quail to use. They use that more often than they use habitat that's smaller, and they don't use the habitat that's larger more often. Does that make sense? You could build it larger than 1,500 square feet, but you won't have the frequency of use more often than you would if it were only 1,500 square feet. And the usage of escape cover diminishes as it decreases in size from 1,500. Over 1,500 doesn't matter. Under 1,500 it does matter. 1,500 seems like the ideal size. So, escape cover can be, again, down tree structure. Escape cover can be shrubby plantings. It could be edge feathering. Anything that quail can use as a loping area and protection from overhead predation. Ideal, somebody mentioned about building your escape cover here in the form of your pallets, and ideally if it were sprayed and you put that on bare ground. If you were going to do edge feathering, ideal to spray the area first, kill all the grasses before you drop your trees on them for the edge feathering so those quail have bare ground. Okay, to all the viewers out there, thank you very much.
See, there's plum thickets that go in here. And what I've done is, you see some dead trees in there. There's a lot of crab apples. I planted all these fence lines and shrubs all the way down. I edge feathered, as you can see here. I dropped my trees along in here, along the edges there. You don't see any tall trees along in here. I've dropped those. On the other side of this little valley here, coulee, you see a strip going along the bottom of the fence line there. Believe it or not, I planted that during the flood in 2007, and it's not in bloom right now, but when that thing gets going, it's unbelievable. I don't know why it is what it is now. I thought I'd see more blooms. There's a lot of
mixture of all kinds of species in there. But as you go up that little coulee there, you'll see a mixture of elderberries. You know, a lot of times I'll go around, pick elderberries and throw them out wherever. That runs up. I'm trying to establish the Covey headquarters in that corner right up in there. You see that kind of in there? And then as it migrates up that field road, up into that corner there, that's one of my Covey headquarters that I'm looking at doing. Here, along here, is a food plot. It's a mixture of corn, Blizzard Buster, and Covey rice.
What's Blizzard Buster?
Blizzard Buster is it's sorghum. It's different types of sorghum seed that mixtures in there, and weeds.
And you get Blizzard Buster from Pheasants Forever, Quail Forever.
And Quail Forever. And through, where's Dave? Dave can help us get it, right? Yeah. Through Quail Forever. As you see in that food plot there, what I might do in some of my food plots, I might go through and spread some Roundup just to create some openings in there, and that's what I'll do. But my favorite is ragweed. What I like, I know it's crazy, but ragweed, pigweed, and foxtail. I want that in my food plot. I really do. I want it in there. The bottom side of this, last year I never got into a food plot. Like I said, I just disked it, and it came up in weeds. And I'm not, you know, I don't know all my sparrows and all my species of birds, but throughout the winter it was filled with them. So if you just don't know what to do with your peas, take a disc through it in June and let it grow up, and I'm telling you, you'll have more birds in there than, I don't know. I never thought a farmer would be talking about weeds, but I love weeds. I'm just going to get to that. So that's what I've done to this area of the farm. And like I said, along there, all my shrubs, I planted every different type of shrub there is, probably from, you name it, nannyberry all the way down to winterberry. They're all in here. I didn't do any spraying around them, so it's going to take about 3 to 4 times longer for them to come up, and because there's so much competition. But they'll come. Andy, you're on board.
Okay, we just want to find out what we're looking at here?
Yep.
All right. Some people were looking here at the Queen Anne's lace, also called wild carrot. This is not a native plant, but it does provide nectar. Some people are trying to keep that out or get rid of it. It's not the worst weed in the world. Depends on the situation. But, you know, it's very beneficial to some insects. And but most of what we're looking here is native. This is wild bergamot, also called Monarda. And it's in the mint family. It's very aromatic. If you crush the flowers or the leaves, you'll kind of recognize that smell. It's kind of minty. And we got a couple yellow flowers in the composite family or the sunflower family. It's a major family of plants in the prairie ecosystems. So one of them here is the I got the botanical name in my head. It's the coneflower, yellow coneflower.
Gray-headed coneflower.
Gray-headed coneflower is another name. It's Rotibita. And you know, all the composites are good for butterflies and other nectar-requiring species. The other composite in that family of plants that's in bloom right now is the early sunflower right here, or the oxeye sunflower. And it's closely related to other sunflowers, not a true sunflower. I think I saw some true sunflower that was not in bloom. Do you have Maximilian?
You'll see more of that on the other end of the farm.
Okay. All right.
We'll make a stop behind the buildings.
Sure.
Because this is going to be another sunflower.
Yeah, that's the other sunflower I was noticing, with that very distinctive foliage over there.
And then, Andy, I don't know if there's any right there, but that real orange, you've seen that orange flower coming out along the edge? That's butterfly milkweed. I'm really partial to that. In fact, there's areas on the farm where you'll see quite a bit of it and not so much other areas, but it just stands right out of the prairie. So when you go back, there's some right along the field road there. This was burnt, not this year, but last year. So I'd love to burn it every year. This is an easy strip to burn. I'm telling you. These strips in here, these buffers are really easy to burn. You put a fire break on the end and just let her go. One thing that does not survive here, you see that around the corner is the tree fall barn. Is balsam fir, white spruce, and grow great. I tried to put in razor fir, just kind of to look nice around the building. You'll see them. They don't do anything, Valerie.
Oh, did they die?
Well, they're like what they want to die, but they just can't.
Can't even get.
So balsam fir is really, honestly, balsam, and the deer leave those alone too, kind of like white spruce. And balsam fir are very aromatic. I really enjoy walking through down in there where we planted a bunch, Valerie.
And it kind of depends on where you're at, because Johnny has a tree farm, Christmas tree farm with some Fraser fir, and they do good to at least the Christmas tree side. So it kind of depends on where you're at and what you got for soil and stuff too.
So here, for some reason, they didn't do very well. And you can see them as we go out. And actually, quail love it. I mean, quail love. I can't do it. I can't do multipolar rows.
No.
Bruce, you got it down there?
We have it. It doesn't tolerate fire, though.
It doesn't?
Not
Oh, there you go.
fire.
Send the fire through it.
Should I burn everything?
I think we got it from you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, right. We got everybody?
Yeah. I'm just kidding.
Okay, just wanted to, as we look here to the,
What do you
to
mean,
the
those guys?
south,
Who's burning numbers?
what I've done with the help of Valerie and, well, Johnny's helping me now a lot with my forest here, is I took a lot of these softwoods, and I'm trying to remember how many years ago I started from the fence line here. This field right here was once, they were going to farm it. They bulldozed everything down into the valley there, and it grew up in wild raspberries and everything else. And what I did is I watched it for a while, and all of a sudden grew up in all those softwoods. And all the way along here, I just started knocking them down. As you see what has happened along here with the sumac, and if you go, when you go in there, it's just full of stuff. I mean, the deer love, everything loves it in there. It's just, I remember the first time I did some edge feathering there, the first year, or the second year, the grouse just automatically migrated to that area. It was kind of crazy deal. You know, now I got some young stuff coming up. But I just wanted to show everybody kind of how the succession was. As you can see up against the tall trees there, I dropped some more this year. Hey, where's John? Johnny, where's Johnny? Johnny says, well, I really didn't need to have to do it, but I did it anyway because I just kind of wanted to have diversity in there. And I'll probably go back a little bit further again, but I'm telling you, the first time I did some edge feathering there, it was a day later. Not a quail, but a pheasant took to it, and I know he was there for 2 weeks crowing all day long. Was there quail there? I can't say whether there was or not, but I was working back at the farm, and I could hear that guy, and I'd come back here, and he'd be working that fence line from that edge feathering. So edge feathering's a huge deal. A lot of my edge feathering is old now, a lot of it, but I'll just kind of keep doing it. As you see, as we came in, you can see where there was some dead honeysuckle in that. I went through there with the sprayer here about a month ago, and I'm just going in spot spraying. It opens it up a little bit. I need to do more. I mean, I just do. And when you go on Valerie's trip, she'll point out some of those species to you. So this is kind of what I did with this area here. And the sumac has really come in here too, I notice now.
Paul, how are you going to maintain that 12, 15-foot canopy? I mean, you start popping up the soft, you just cut them again?
I cut them again.
Okay.
You can spray them.
Yeah, but I mean, you want to maintain that feather edge, right?
You're exactly right. So I lay them over and you cut them, but you have to continue to do that, otherwise they're going to go back up.
Okay.
As we came in here around the corner, you see that sumac that I edge feathered? The first year I tried that, and believe it or not, I mean, those suckers sucker, and it's really nice habitat, and I really believe the quail are going to migrate to even more so to that area.
Well, that short little poplar is very nice, but then it's like grass, you know, and that's what you're doing. You're just killing it again.
I'm killing it again.
Okay.
So this is kind of what I did with this area in here.
So do you have any wild turkeys? Yeah, I got
They love sumac.
Well, last year, along that where I did the edge feathering of sumac, because they were, once all the corn, everything was gone, they were everywhere in there.
They were flying up to the top of the sumac.
Yeah,
Big heavy bodies, you know, holding on to those branches.
Life, swinging back and forth.
And what he's doing there with the young aspen or popple is what you would absolutely prescribe for grouse habitat, because the male buds on young popple are the prime food source.
Yeah.
So what he's doing there, and by going back in every few years and knocking more down, he's not killing it because they're all connected. It's one big root mass of aspen. And so what he's doing there is perfect for grouse too. So he's doing multiple things here.
Oh,
Thank you, brother.
From the standpoint of the economics of the farm, you know, if what you're selling some hay, you got oats here.
Yeah.
What
neighbors take it? Yep.
What other revenue generation? Some soybeans back there in the strips.
Yeah, the neighbors take that, and plus my CRP payments.
Okay.
That's the revenue that comes off it.
Okay.
I mean, do I get the max out of it? Probably not, but I think we talked earlier.
Right.
You know, I'm doing what I'm doing because I love doing it. So.
But I mean, if you were in a situation where the economics were probably more important.
Yeah.
Well, you're doing the right thing, but you just nailed it, Jim. Sometimes the dollar bills get a little bit.
Yeah. No, and I understand that. Yeah. And then you try to find other ways. You really do. I take on another job.
I like still got like the marginal steeper land that maybe isn't that economical to plant anyway. So even if you can't do these upland areas.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Manage your
the CRP sign-up that just got over for planting into upland grass, the rental rate in this county was $179 an acre. Pretty good.
Yeah.
You know?
So that helps. Yeah.
I like to mention
Do they have that sign up every year?
No. They have them periodically.
On the edge feathering, ideally, let's say if this is a patch of woods, although Paul's done an outstanding job with it and everything, you know, but let's just say you have the big mature trees coming right to the edge. Ideally, you'd like to go 30 feet back in there. Just cut down, but that's a lot of work, I know that. And that's where our chapter, we can come in and maybe help you guys out. But you'd like to go at least 30 feet back in there.
And just basically clear cut, you're just dropping stuff?
Yeah, you're dropping it. And we recommend what we call a hinge cut. In other words, don't cut it right. Cut about this high where it's going to fall over. The birds can access underneath there for extra cover.
Now, would you drop that typically back into the woods? Or
back into the woods.
Oh, okay, yeah. Back in, okay.
Because this portion here, again, it's the money maker for the farmer.
Gotcha.
Over in there, he's really not making any money. He really doesn't care.
Gotcha,
So we got a lot of wood edge that we can go back into the woods. 30 feet. Now, you don't have to take the whole thing the first year. Let's say you might take 100 yards or whatever and just get that next year, go over here, back and forth like he's done over here and all. I would recommend just a little bit. Quail love edges. This little corner here, let's just say if you had a road, I know your predator could be a problem here, but let's say if you had a little road going between this, bisecting this over here, they love that edge back and forth, so to speak. So you like to be able to use these corners as much as you can. It's all work, I know that, but it's going to pay off regarding, you know, generating more birds in this area.
Do you do anything with that feathering edge, but then to, you know, Paul was talking about the giant ragweed and foxtail and such. Do you do anything? Would you disc along there to encourage?
You know, if you could, it'd be great to have ragweed in there. I mean, as much ragweed, pigweed, foxtails you can get in there, great stuff and all. You know.
So that would be an added.
Adam, what do you think about that, Matt? Does that sound just like madness to you?
Gotta keep it trimmed back.
You know, it's always a trade-off. It's good for the farmer, you know, to get stuff like this. But at the same time, I look at nature as really provides some great sources of entertainment. Come out here to see the quail, see the pheasants, and to hear them. To me, just worth it. You know, that's the way I look at it. Sorry for the birds.
Regarding what you get when you work on those edges, if that edge has recently grown woody out onto the fields with box elder, you'll get ragweed in the newly feathered ground. If you go back into the oak woods or something of the sort, you'll get a little different mix. Yeah. But under the box elders, you'll get those things coming up nicely.
And box elders are great for just edge feathering. I mean, they're weed trees.
And they grow like the dickens.
Yep. Keep coming.
But they also grow this way, and it's hard to make them fall.
I know.
Yes.
Exactly.
Well, you make them pile as you fall.
Okay, what we're going to do now is just kind of check out some of my edge feathering along the way back out on the right-hand side, the sumac. That was new this last
March.
In March, we did that. And I do a little bit every year, and I cut it back. And then we'll go and we'll stop on top of the hill there, and then we'll take a little walk down in some of the areas where the quail really, really like that area for some reason or another. And then after lunch, then you can come back and take the other tour back into the woods with Valerie. So, all right? Yeah, this is void for everybody to get in. Oh, are you going to show us a feeder? Yeah. Somewhere? Oh, yeah. Yeah, you'll get to see one here in a minute. Is everybody here? Wow. We added a bunch of people.
I get more rod in my truck every time I stop.
Yeah. Just put air in your tires, Art. Hey.
I'm going to have a good piece of change when I get back. I told him quarter on the way out, buck to get back.
I'd raise that, Art. Heck with a buck. Okay, everybody out of here now? Here's this corner here. This is kind of unique, this corner here. I talked about how that switchgrass took over in this corner. As you can see here, I mean, I didn't get it burnt this year. There are some forbs in there, but it's pretty thick. But it does hold up in the winter. That switchgrass does. There's a ton of seeds in there. Believe it or not, the pheasants love it. I mean, they really do. Quail, just, I don't know, can be a little thick.
That's my issue with that fall birds, because that is my habitat for my pheasants and whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, because it does hold up in the snow. Yeah. You're right.
And originally I planted it for pheasants. I mean, I did have quail. This corner right here, is the first covey I put up in 2006 right here. It's grown up a little bit. There was a fence line going along here. My brother and I toppled all those trees in here, and it's been a while since we edge feathered it. It looks fairly thick, but if you get down in there along my prairie here, it's not too bad down there. I mean, it's kind of open underneath a lot of those shrubs. There's plum thickets, there's dogwoods, where's Valerie? Honeysuckle, and there's things like that. Down here, the other day, just for the heck of it, I put artificial dusting area. I noticed there was an area on this field when it was so dry, there was birds dusting in there. I don't know if it was quail or if it was whatever it was. It wasn't turkey, it was small. And it was up in that field there, but I just kind of made a makeshift dusting area here.
Small ragweed.
In the right spot or not, I don't know. And I also put one down further. But this area here, for some reason, it's southern exposure. They like this area. And once we walk down in here, I'll show you an opening that I kind of created there. What was it? Okay. In here, now we can walk around. I used to have trails going to this feeder in here. I don't anymore, but I have a quail feeder down in here. It actually was a pheasant feeder, but I use it as a quail feeder. We'll see if we can get to it. We can go around the other side here. And I dropped some trees in here.
The honeysuckle area, is that intentionally going to say? I mean, Val will want that killed, but I mean,
no, it wasn't, but it's something I missed, of course.
Okay.
All right. I just made this the other day just because it doesn't look like anything, well, I don't know. There was something in there scratching, but it doesn't look like anything's using it. I created this artificial dusting area, but birds, what I noticed, will dust where they want to dust in their favorite areas. And turkeys, I'll show you an area where my turkeys dust down here religiously, except they hadn't used it that much this year, but we'll go around the corner here.
How'd you kill that off?
I just hold it up. I took my a shovel and I just it's there wasn't much growing there, so I just kind of they stir this up and I don't know, they just It's just kind of bizarre how they.
You didn't create this, Paul. This was here when you got here, right?
This was here when I bought the farm, and it's still been here ever since.
Well, they got pits dug.
They got pits, yeah, literally. And when you come, if you're turkey hunting out here and the hens come on here, I've never seen a tom dust. I've always seen hens dust. It looks like pig pen. I mean, they're dust flying and it's crazy. But that's kind of an area they just. I see they've been working that bottom one now, and up there they've been scratching up there. We can walk back through here. It is, isn't it? Not good.
Yeah.
That's not good? I got a few butternut in here. And
They have the
canker. Canker?
How long's that been in here?
Butternut?
That canker.
You asked the
I think it probably got imported like first of the 1900s.
I mean, in this woodlot, you noticed it before?
I don't know I don't know where it isn't anymore.
She pointed it out to me.
Butternut's just a cool tree, but I don't know where the canker doesn't exist anymore.
So this isn't, it's sad but not a surprise.
Right.
Okay.
It's beautiful covered.
All right.
Yeah. It's beautiful wood. Beautiful wood.
We'll get out of here. Is everybody in here now? You want to move up a little bit? Dude, this group like this expanded like double. You want to come on up so everybody can hear? I just want to cover a couple things. I do have a few butternut in the woods, and Valerie pointed them out to me. I did not know I had butternut, but there is a few spread throughout. And there's one right here. There's a canker that is affecting all the butternut trees in southeast Minnesota. Few of these in here are surviving, but you'll see this one right here with the bark coming off it. Now it's trying to sprout. It's kind of sad because I love butternut. But
This one has fewer cankers,
that one has fewer cankers,
but still got them.
but it still has them. And that's really sad for our butternut tree because they're a valuable food source not only for wildlife but for us. We love them. Up here along here, there used to be a trail through here. As you can see, I dropped a few trees in here. And then along here, that's all been edge feathered there. There's there's cedars in there. There's all kinds of stuff. But that line goes all the way down now, and that's all been, and so it provided a lot of good habitat. You can see some of the honeysuckle I have got, but now it's like it's an ongoing. It'll never go away. I don't think it will. But this is some suburb habitat along this line in here. Wildlife love this part of the farm. I don't know if it's the southern exposure. It's the amount of every tree almost has a berry on it here or a nut source. So, and it's great deer hunting right here, by the way. Oh no, it's not. That's right. Someone want to know if we get morel mushrooms here. Who was that?
Such is the way of the world, you can never know just where to put all your faith.